Good morning and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Comfort Keepers in-Home Care and Advanced Audiology. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our guest this morning is Dr. Thomas Polucki, a local chiropractor who dabbles in all kinds of things.
Dabbles
in the health field. Right?
Well, I don't know about dabbling.
Well, I thought that word was, I usually use all kinds of words to explain you.
Yes. Indomitable. I like that.
Inimitable. Yes. The one and only.
The one and only.
Who dabbles.
Yes. Yeah, I try not to dabble in something. I try to kind of go into it all in. Yeah, all in. Dabbling means that there's no commitment. You're just going to touch on something and not really become proficient in anything. And I really make it a point to try to know what I'm talking about at least.
Well, so far, as far as I'm concerned, you know what you're talking about.
Great, because today's show, I'd like to focus on something that's critically important and very topical. There's a lot of people out there right now who are hurting. And it can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be mental. And this is the worst time of the year for the overwhelming amount of people. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Christmas Day is the most common day for people to actually take their own lives.
Take their own lives. No, I've heard that.
And New Year's Day is a close second. So you really don't know what's going on with people. You don't know how bad they are hurting until you find out the worst possible way. So today's show, I want to focus on a few things that may actually save someone's life, as far as finding out what's important and giving people some of the skills necessary to overcome incredible sorrow and feeling of helplessness and hopelessness that is a major factor in these next couple of weeks coming up for far too many people, and it goes unnoticed and largely mismanaged by conventional means.
Well, it's interesting. I could not agree with you more. And when I used to work the community hotline here, this time of year, we had the most extreme numbers of people who were down emotionally, and of course, emotional affects physical.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. But this was the time of year that most of the calls that came in were suicide related.
Sure.
Either through excess alcohol, which certainly does not help.
Right.
I mean, it gives you a sugar high to begin with. But after that sugar high wears off,
it's a depressant.
It's a depressant.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people realize that.
Right. Well, the issue is that may help some people. That I believe that is a superficial answer, simply because if there is a problem with alcohol involved, there's usually an underlying issue where people are trying to self-medicate in the first place. So that comes in many different forms, and alcohol is one of them. Obviously, alcohol is an issue, but some people use other ways to deal with it. Yes. For a lot of people, now this is a little bit off topic, but only slightly, a lot of people, the number one drug of choice is food, and you're not necessarily going to commit suicide with food, but you certainly can get into trouble with food, and that is one of the main issues that affects the overwhelming majority of the population. The 2/3 of the population need to lose at least 20 pounds in order to be in a safe, healthy range, or more.
I would agree.
Or more.
I would agree completely.
But here's the problem that I see so much of in this, that people, it takes a long time for people to get to the point where they realize that they really need some professional help. And far too often when they seek out that professional help, the knee-jerk response of most conventionally trained physicians is going to be antidepressants. And the science behind it is staggeringly that this is inefficient at best. At best, this is not a good strategy, and that is being as generous as I can be, and I'm trying to be ultra-conservatively professional here. It simply does, it fails too many people. So what are the answers? Well, I'm not about to position myself as a psychiatrist or even a psychologist, but I do know some things, having some personal experience with these issues and what has helped me and the people that I associate with and how they deal with it, because we are seeing all the people who fall through the cracks, all the people that the conventional approach of therapies and chemical management of these conditions just don't help. And unfortunately, that is way too large a group.
Yes, I agree with you. It is. And I also have gone through things in my life. I was on the verge of committing suicide myself because of my life situation. And I took the motorcycle up to the end of our street, and I was going to ride it off the mountaintop there. I was dead serious about doing that. And I got to the edge, and I thought, wait a minute. I have 3 children. I need to do something other than this.
Right.
And that fact, that single fact alone, is what brought me to my senses. Because I was just thinking, oh, poor me.
Right.
That's exactly the way I was thinking.
Sure.
I've got to do something to get out of the mess I'm in. One way was do away with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get to that point.
Yeah.
But I stopped myself, and I went home and I called my psychiatrist, and he said, oh, Barbara, you're ready to get out of your mud puddle and wash the mud off? And I said, yes, I am. He said, be in my office at 9 o'clock in the morning. And that was the 3rd try going to see him.
Right.
I could not bring myself to admit my lifetime, and it wasn't just the situation that I was in, but it was my life from the time I was 3 or 4 years old. All of those incidents that happened to me personally affected my life.
Absolutely. And I think I don't want to belittle or diminish the revelation that you had, because that is the key. When you are ready, when you get to the point where you are making a choice between life or death, and it doesn't really matter which way it goes, and then you decide to live, everything changes.
It does.
Everything changes in an instant, and so much so that it leads us to question about, it will take years of therapy. It will take this pharmaceutical prescription. It will take this or that. The reality is, it doesn't take any of that. It just takes that moment of clarity when you decide that life is what you want. And the most important thing, the point to get to, is why. Because up until that point, everything was, why me? Why is this happening to me?
That's exactly right.
And you get caught in this trap of helplessness. I've tried everything, right? People say, well, I've tried everything and it doesn't work for me. And then you start making these global statements about everyone is out to get me, or nobody understands, or these kind of statements that you hear coming out of people. And to me, whenever I hear that, is a big red flag, because I know where that is going. I know what the ultimate end point of that conversation leads to. So these things of you need to address it right away. Like, oh, you've tried everything, have you? Everything. You've tried everything. Because I hear that all the time, especially coming into my office. Like, oh, I've tried everything. What are you going to do that's different? And I hear that almost invariably. Unless a patient has a very strong referral from someone that they trust implicitly, I've got to tell people what it is I do, because people don't know.
That's right.
You know, and so I've tried everything. Oh, everything. Well, why don't you tell me about everything? What exactly have you tried? Well, I'm telling you, I've tried everything. I tried drugs. Well, what drugs have you tried? Well, I tried half a dozen different kinds of drugs and none of them work. Okay, so maybe this isn't a thing that can be handled by drugs. And I've tried physical. I was being seen by the physical therapist for the Lakers, or I've gotten the surgery from the NFL specialist in this problem, and I've had this, and I've seen the head of the department down at USC. I've been treated. I've been in a program at UCLA. I'm like, okay, so yeah, you have tried some things, but you haven't tried this. And they're like, oh yes, I have. I've tried chiropractic before. I'm like, okay, so tell me about that. You know, and invariably it is, you know, every time you come in, you get the same thing, regardless of what your problem is, who you are, or anything. And I'm like, well, okay, are you open to the possibility that that's not what I do at all? And then if they are, then we can talk. So, first of all, the general globalization of a condition is a big red flag, because we all get caught in that track. Why is this happening to me? Because there's no good answer to that.
No, there isn't.
There's no good answer to that that's going to put you anywhere close to where you need to be on towards the path of getting better. And I've tried everything and it's hopeless. And there's no good answer to that either. You can't help somebody that is really stuck in that place. So then you start seeing, is there any possibility? Because for some people it's just out of my realm. Like I said, I am not a psychiatrist, I am not a psychologist. But I do care about my patients. I do try to help, and I have learned over the past 25 years some things that if there is even a crack in that armor, that self-defense mechanism that people have put up when they're heading off the hill like you were, is there a crack in that? Is there any way that I can connect with this person? And I'll use any trick in the book at that point. I mean, I don't care. I don't think I'm manipulative, because I know what I can do for people. I will do whatever it takes to have a chance to change that person's life. Because I also know some things that people don't know about what I do. I know that one specific upper cervical adjustment has been proven to increase neuroplasticity, which means changing the way the brain works in real time. Like, instead of being trapped into this loop, this fatal, catastrophic failure, into this open realm of possibility. And I hope I'm not talking too flowery, but the bottom line is this is a very measurable thing, using PET scans, which are active MRIs that show the brain activity. This was studied by 8 PhDs and 1 chiropractor. They figured, oh, let's see what happens. So they were able to create more, let's just say, hope in the brain hope for a new solution in the brain, the way the brain really works, like the mechanics of hope, with one upper cervical specific adjustment, than everything that person had tried before. All of the drug therapies, all of the years, in many instances, of conventional therapy. They put them into the PET scan, they give them an upper cervical adjustment, and all of a sudden the brain works differently. And this wasn't in people who had back pain. This isn't about, oh, chiropractic is an accepted treatment for mechanical low back pain. We're talking about brain function in real time. Measurable change in brain function, the way that you process information, the way that the brain chemicals have their effect throughout the entire body. This is in many cases the difference between someone wanting to go on with their lives and not. And most people never consider this. I have yet to have any kind of a referral from any kind of a psychiatrist, psychologist, any person working like that said, you know, I saw that study, the one done by 8 PhDs that showed that you can make a change that I can't do in years of therapy. I'd like to see if you can help my patient. I haven't gotten that call yet.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. With all of the knowledge that we have now about chiropractic and about the medical community. Now, when I was going through this in my middle 30s, chiropractic, what's that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or if you did hear anything about it, it was certainly not about anything we're talking about now. It was about, oh, if you're in a car accident, you go to a chiropractor. They're kind of ambulance chasers. Or if you're even being really generous, very, very, very nice about the profession, say, oh yeah, I heard they can help bad backs. That's the best case scenario that you're going to hear about chiropractic. Yeah, they might be able to help you with that bad back. But, you know, don't let them talk to you about kids, and don't let them talk to you about anything more than a handful of visits, because then you know you're in the wrong place. Then you're talking to the wrong kind of chiropractor, and they're a quack. And yet okay, Landmark Insurance. Again, no small study. 7-year study with over 800 participants that they tracked. Wow. When they had the chiropractor as the primary care provider instead of the MD, 60% less hospital admissions over this 8-year period, tracking 800 people.
Wow.
62% less surgeries, 59% less days in the hospital, 85% less pharmaceutical use.
Interesting.
No small study.
No, obviously not. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't about back pain. I'm happy to help people with back pain because that's where most people are. I could give I have 10 of these studies right now that I can tell you that I guarantee nobody's heard of out there. Mm-hmm. And all of them have this validity. These aren't little side studies that I did on a shoestring budget. First of all, any one of these studies, research is real expensive. That's why most of the research that you're ever going to hear about was done by a drug company. Mm-hmm. Because they're looking for the payoff at the end of it.
That's right,
and you think there's not going to be some bias in that? But the bottom line is, I will only use research that I know stands up. And it takes a while to find that stuff. According to the British Medical Journal, less than 3% of published studies are scientifically valid without bias.
Wow, that's amazing.
So you got to be able to chew through all of the
false information.
Yes, that's right.
And nobody wants to do that. I don't want to do that, but I have a responsibility.
Well, when we come back, let's, and probably people are wondering why I'm not talking too much. I apologize, I came in late, and of course those who listened last week know I had laryngitis and can still hear it in my voice. But let's talk about corralling some of the information you're giving, because, you know, there's the physical side of what goes on in our illness, and there's a mental side that goes on. But, you know, for years as a MD, you know, I they didn't talk about the psychologic contributions, and now we do, but the problem is doctors don't have the time to talk about it.
Exactly.
And when somebody comes in to see you, Thomas, and you're talking about family and things like that, that's an important part of what's going on with the patient also. So when we come back, let's get into that arena, which is totally different, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.